One of the things that I love about doing this podcast is the opportunity to meet people that I perhaps heard about but had never met personally. And our guest in today's episode is one of those people, Chris Chase. Chris is a pastor at one of the meeting house churches in the Greater Toronto area. And I had the chance to sit down with Chris earlier this year in downtown Toronto at the Stone Church, and we had such a good conversation. This is actually going to be in two parts. In today's episode, we're going to just focus on getting to know some of Chris's background and his journey to faith, and what it was like as a boy growing up on the streets of Montreal. And then on the next episode, we're going to do a little bit deeper into cultural issues and theology and some things. But Chris is an amazing guy. I'm sure you're going to enjoy hearing what he has to say. So let's go to that interview right now. So if you're listening to Sidewalk, Skyline and you're not watching it on YouTube, you should probably watch it on YouTube, because Chris Chase and I are sitting here between at least two ferns.
Between two, beside one, between two.
Yes, and Chris, we were just talking about the fact that we've known each other from afar, but never really had any kind of sit down, any kind of deep conversation. So that's what we're going to try to do today, and we'll see how deep we are. But maybe not. But
by the end.
Yeah, by the end you'll discover just the depths of Chris Chase. The depths. Don't hurt yourself, Chris.
I won't.
Okay.
Not again.
So I want to actually get to know you.
Sure.
Today. So I want to hear the life story as much as we can cover in 40 minutes or so.
Sure.
So you grew up in Montreal. Is that where you're born?
Yeah, born and raised there. Moved around a little bit as a kid, but that was the life of living.
Most kids move around.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, just physically in general.
Yeah.
But like father who worked with trains, mother who worked in the health profession, Anglophones in a Francophone city, and just like any other kid, just enjoyed everything in front of them. Really thought that I was going to be a baseball player. Really thought that was going to happen, and that did not happen at all. But yeah, like it was just a great time of learning about who I am as a person. That kind of set me on the trajectory that I'm on now.
So siblings?
I have a younger sister. She is. I won't give away her age because she'd be very angry if she watched this. To listen to this, but she's younger than I am, not by much. And just the two of us. My parents decided after having me and after having her, that they had contributed to the universe enough, and that was enough for them.
That was enough.
Yeah, they were.
After your sister, no more.
Yeah. If because I think both of us together, we were more like 4 kids as opposed to 2 kids, and so they were like,
moved around a lot.
Yeah, we moved around a lot. We were active children.
Yeah.
And so they decided to kind of stop the train there after my little sister Tamika was born.
Your dad worked with the railroad?
Yeah, he actually works in the anything you see inside Via Rail. Anything you see inside of CP in terms of the inner workings of the actual carts, like that's what my dad does.
Wow.
Yeah, so he's been doing that for as long as I've been alive. And in fact, I would actually say that I've probably poorly described what he's done, because I've never fully I've understood it in part, but not the whole.
Right.
So he'll look at me like, "That's Chris. I've told you this a million times. It's not exactly what I do. What I do is this." And I'm like, "I forget that. It's just so complicated." But he's in the world of trains. That's all. That's the easiest bet.
Did he spend his work life on the trains or
off.
Working for?
Working
off.
for.
Okay,
working off and kind of and creating. And then my mom, she's been a nurse for as long as I've been alive.
Yeah.
We're the way our life was. Dad would work in the mornings so I wouldn't see Dad before he left. He was already gone when I woke up, and by the time I got home from school, Dad was home and Mom was gone.
Yeah.
Working nights, and so there might have been a little bit of overlap between the two of them, but we were in school, and Mom had 2 nursing jobs. So Dad had a job working, and then Mom would work 1 nursing job during the week, and then another nursing job on the weekends. And so there was strong work ethic in our family.
Yeah.
And the sacrifices that they made were to allow us to do stuff, to allow us to have certain things. Not everything, but allow us to kind of, to at least experience some cool stuff every now and again that we had to earn.
Yeah.
So like if they worked for it, we had to earn the right to get it. It wasn't just kind of like, we worked and therefore you're getting a jet ski. It was like, no, you're going to buy your own jet ski, but you have the money for it. It doesn't matter. You have to work for it. So
it shaped you a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You learn the value of everything. You learn the value of family time, because when we had it, it was because everybody was off on that day, or everybody was off on that at that time. You learn the value of hard work. You learn the value of putting your hand to the plow and actually earning your keep.
Right.
You were just kind of living vicariously through the paycheck or the wallet of somebody else.
Yeah.
You did things to earn your own keep as well.
When you meet people who feel entitled, does it drive you nuts?
It doesn't drive me nuts as much as it lets me know that there's a reason why.
Right.
So I would more so be inquisitive as to why they are the way that they are.
Right.
It's more of an annoyance, but it's kind of like, well, something happened that allowed you to be that way. That's just not me. And then at the same time, trying to raise my kids to make sure that they're not the same way either.
Yeah.
I do not need my kids to become viral because they thought that they deserved something that they didn't deserve.
So the Chris Chase that you know, is he more like your dad or your mother?
I get my spending habits from my mother.
And so you like to spend?
I enjoy the finer things.
Okay.
I enjoy the finer things, and so I get that. I get the stylish stuff from my mom, but I get the backbone. The backbone from my dad. Mm-hmm. My mom's a firecracker, and my dad's much more. He looks at all the angles, and so when he speaks, he's thought it through. He's really sat down and gone like, "This is why I think the way that I think," and so I get that sort of that resolve from him. But then the adventurous side, the playful laugher, that's from my mom.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Growing up in Montreal, was it relatively trouble-free childhood for you, or?
Well, you got to define trouble. If trouble is like hanging out with your buddies and just kind of like fooling around, then I was in trouble all the time. Like parents go, "Why are your shoes wet?" Well, we found a lake. Right, like that sort of like, that sort of Dennis the Menace sort of like that sort of trouble.
Yeah, so you got to be a kid.
You got to be a kid, like my parents were the sort that, if my dad saw me at a bus stop, let's say, and I was hanging out with friends, and my dad was going to the grocery store, he would make a U-turn and turn back around and pick me up, even if I wasn't doing anything. Yeah. And I'd be like, "You just embarrassed me in front of my friends, Dad. What have you done?" And he'd be like, "Well, I just have a feeling I'm protecting you from something."
Yeah.
And some of those friends, some of those friends would actually get into much, much deeper trouble as they got older. And my father had a sense of like, I would rather embarrass you right now to protect you from something that you can't see. Because, like when you're a kid, you're naive. Yeah. You don't become street smart until you're older. Yeah. And I wasn't. My sister's way more like, she can see, she's like, "Oh, that's we're not going to be here." And I'm like, "Everything's fine. I don't understand." So my dad was sort of like, "No, like not everybody's your friend. Not everybody's worth your time. Here's what society is like, and here's what you need to be thinking about avoiding all the time." Yeah. So the trouble I got into as a kid was more just the trouble that you got into as a kid. Yeah. Now, I would say this, a lot of the trouble that we got into as kids then, when I was growing up, you can't get in trouble for now. Like, it's actually way more troublesome now to get in trouble the way we did, because we, just a different day, different age, right? Certain things were like, if my kids came back home and told me, I'd be like, "You're not leaving the house and you're
Yeah.
Was there a video where people just stay inside, right?
Yeah.
But at that day and age, it was just kind of like, kids were kids, and kind of learning the ins and outs of childhood.
Did you guys go to church? Was faith in your home?
With many West Indian families, many parents grew up going to church back home, whatever island they were from.
Right.
They grew up going to church. A lot decided when they migrated from wherever they were to Canada to go to church. My parents were not that sort. My father grew up Anglican. My mother grew up in a Pentecostal church. My mother attended a Pentecostal church in Montreal, actually, and didn't have the greatest of experiences, and so that kind of frowned our family for a long time about church, because her experience was one that was negative. And so Sundays were spent just kind of like at home. Parents would cook. Music would be playing, and sometimes it would be gospel centric. Other times it would be from the islands. But faith was important. We knew faith. We knew who God was. We knew that there was a Jesus, but we weren't practicing that. We weren't attending an assembly of any sort on Sunday morning. We didn't have church clothes were reserved for weddings and funerals. They weren't reserved for the actual Sunday morning experience.
Right. So those early years at home when family's cooking and you got the music on, what were some of the early music that kind of left an imprint on you?
Oh my goodness. Anything from the Temptations and the Four Tops and Stevie Wonder to the early 80s of Whitney Houston and Prince and Michael Jackson, to Muddy Waters and Chuck Berry, to artists from Barbados like Red Plastic Bag and which is an actual artist's name, and others. So it was a mixture of calypso and soca music. A mixture of, my dad loved light rock favorites too, so I would listen, Christopher Cross and Bread, and like bands of like people like who like
cheesiest white
the
bread
cheesiest white bread, like that sort of like that sort of like that was stuff that we grew up with. Q 92.5 was a radio station, so so there was a plethora of music that we would listen to. From the only thing that wasn't in our house was rap music, but anything like soul. Otis Redding, Bill Withers, that was sort of the upbringing of I'm missing a slew of other artists, but that was sort of the upbringing that I grew up with.
Yeah. So, how did Jesus show up?
When I was in grade 4, my great grandmother passed away. Now, growing up, we would go visit my aunt who took care of my great grandmother. By the time I kind of was able to understand what was going on, she was already too old to communicate. And so we would go and we would visit her, but it would be like, you're 8 years old and you're literally talking to somebody who's not responding. It's, there's no connection. Yeah. But I remember being at her funeral, and again, I don't know this person. We don't have a connection. Right. But at the funeral, the song "Great Is Thy Faithfulness" started. And for some reason, I don't know why, I just began to weep. And again, I don't have any connection with this, my great grandmother, but I'm weeping, pardon for sin and peace that endureth. And I'm weeping. Yeah. And I can't understand why. And so my aunt.
Grade 4.
Yep, grade 4. Yeah. My aunt Muriel, who affectionately we call Aunt Moo, M-U, not M-O-O. She'd be offended if it was the cow version, but she was like, she just began to talk to me about the Holy Spirit. And again, you're 10 years old, all are cartoons and comic books and your love for the Expos and the Canadians. What's the Holy Spirit? Yeah. Oh, he's a who? Yeah. It's not even a what. But that was the beginning stages. And so the way Montreal is set up, we lived on the western part of Montreal. My parents would drive me to her house, and I would stay overnight Saturday nights, and we would go to church on Sunday mornings. We'd take the city bus to church. I'd go back to her house, and then we would from there talk and my parents would pick me up on Sunday afternoons, and I would go home. And I did that and that was the beginning stages. So from like grade 4 to around grade 6, every weekend, I would hitch my life to her life, and she had no cable, she had no video games, and she made me memorize the 10 Commandments, memorize the Lord's Prayer, and all that sort of stuff. And there was no parks, like just the way it was, like as we're not necessarily downtown, but we're in a, we're closing that way, like that sort of like the urban center, like that's where she lived. We lived in the suburbs. She lived in the urban center. There's no parks. There's no place to walk around and ride a bike. But that was the formation of where I learned who Jesus was from my aunt.
What did you learn about belonging to a city, or the life in the city growing up in Montreal? Like everybody's got their rabbit trail, their groove, that this is how I circuit the city. What was it like for you?
So it changed, right? Like from when you were in grade 4, you're taught that everything's dangerous. Don't touch strangers. Don't go here. Don't go there. Don't look at that person in the eye. Don't pick that up. Don't like I'm gonna like pick up a stick and like eat it, like that sort of thing. But like everything's dangerous. And my Aunt Muriel, she didn't have any kids, so I became like a surrogate son for her. So there was like very, very overprotective. Later on, because I stopped going to church for a while, and then started back up when I was in grade 9. Same church downtown Montreal, Evangelical Pentecostal Church. But then I started being able to navigate the city a bit more on my own. I would take the city bus to church and things like that. And then the city it became like an extension of your arm. So you knew where to get the best slice. You knew where to get you knew where the discount was for the movies. You knew how to get the fastest way to get to Old Montreal. You knew where to see the best sunset. You knew the best restaurants. You knew that Three Amigos across the street from the church down the road had the best tacos and the best guacamole. On these days at this time, the best place to get Chinese food was here. It became like downtown became home for me. So I would spend an hour and a half on the city bus from the suburbs to go downtown, and I would spend all day down with my friends. Just because there was so much life there. You learned, like every language, every nationality, English and French, and then everything in between was downtown. And so we would spend countless hours just in the summertime, especially just walking up and down St. Catherine Street to Maisonneuve and just getting to know the city, I loved it then. It's so sad now because now I go back down there and I feel like a tourist. Like I don't remember where to park because I've been in Ontario for so long. I don't remember all, but like there was a time where like I knew exactly where to go for everything. And like that was rabbit trail. Like, we just knew, okay, so we're gonna go here, we're gonna meet here, we're gonna go that, we're gonna take the bus here, we're gonna go there, we're gonna get back for Sunday night service at 6 o'clock.
Well, now as a mature, responsible adult with gray in your beard, and children to be aware of, do you feel more at home in a city, or would you feel more at home if you had a farm outside Peterborough?
I am. My wife would laugh if I wasn't able to be close enough to get to a mall just to walk through it. My wife would be like, we are dying from online shopping. You need to stop immediately. The quietness, I love visiting it. So my wife is born and raised in Kincardine, Ontario. And so we go there once a summer. We go up there as a family, and I love
What's your wife's name?
Rebecca.
What was her maiden name?
Brown.
Rebecca Brown. I wonder. I might have met her along the way.
In the journey,
6
right?
degrees of separation from David Wells, right?
Yes, he is our North Star.
He is.
David, if you're watching this, David, you are our North Star. Amen. Everything kind of relates back to you.
Yes.
So we love going up there, and I love the quaintness of Main Street. I love being able to find that there's 2 coffee shops and everyone knows each other. But I am a city guy at heart. And so even though we live in the suburbs now, I relish the moments where we're meeting at someone's church. Let's do it.
We all take some measure of comfort from place, right?
And you feel at home.
Yeah.
And so when I go downtown, I park at the same spot, and then I rarely do I take public transportation. I love to walk in the summertime, so I will park near Front Street near Union Station, across from the old spaghetti factory, and then I will walk everywhere.
Yeah.
And my wife and I will make sure we're wearing our running shoes that day, and we're renting bikes or we are walking everywhere. Yeah. So I love the suburbs because I love being able to, at the end of the day, have a backyard. Love it. Maybe 23, 24-year-old me would have loved living downtown. Now I'm kind of like, I don't know. But like any opportunity I have to get downtown, I'm taking it without even thinking about it. I'm taking it. And I'm spending the day down here. Yeah.
Now you live in Oshawa.
Yeah.
Tell me about Oshawa as a city. What's Oshawa all about?
So there's three. If you're from Oshawa, this might offend you, but there's three breakdowns of Oshawa. There's Oshawa, which is the northern part, which is closer to Brooklyn, Ontario. That's sort of like the nicer houses. Then there's middle Oshawa, which is more blue collar, which is a mixture of different lifestyles, price marking, that sort of thing. So you have people who make decent money but could only afford this sort of a house, that sort of thing, starter homes, that sort of thing. And then you have lower Oshawa, which is traditionally seen as poor. That's not the case. Like, there's been some great revitalization there, but like that's where the GM plant was and everything south of that. A bit older homes. And so there's three different breakdowns, and so everybody kind of like there's meeting spots for everything. So there's the meeting spot for everybody is the Walmart on just off Stevenson, or the Oshawa Center. But then there's the movie theater, which is on the northern part, and you're able to see that based on the cars that are in the parking lot, based on the stores that are certain places. But there's really a melting pot, especially now that housing is just insane. So a lot of people who would regularly maybe have lived in Scarborough or lived in, let's say, Pickering. The affordable housing is in Oshawa now. So you're seeing it's a mixture of young families starting starter homes, doing that there, along with people who have lived in Oshawa in the same houses for 30, 40, 50 years. So there's a real mixture of young families starting out saying like we settled here because we couldn't afford in Whitby, we couldn't afford in Ajax, and then people who are kind of like, Oshawa was my home, and I'm never will I depart.
Right. Do you have deep roots in any one city that you've lived?
We lived in Ajax before living in Oshawa, and so outside of growing up in Montreal, Ajax is still home to us. Like we mourn. Like it was just by province we had to move, and we mourn it all the time. Like we were like, if we could, just because we lived into a great cul-de-sac, and our neighbors became our family. We all had kids around the same age and at the same time, something in the water, and so all of our kids were at the same point of life together, and they grew up together. And this everything from the stores to the parks to the gym to everything was all in this great little town.
That's interesting because I think for every one of us there is a sense of who we are that comes out of place. And the comfort of a place, the challenge or the excitement of a place, the things that are tied to that place, including our relationships and but then there's also we live in a tumultuous world where a lot of people are moving around a lot. And some people have no choice, and they're exiled, they're estranged, they're a newcomer to a new place. Go back to Annie Move for a minute. She was the one that really was like a spiritual mother that brought spiritual birth to you, right? And so was it her? Did she lead you to Jesus, and then you made up your mind, or did that come out of church, or was that just kind of a?
So I stopped going to church in grade 6 or grade 7. I was kind of like, what am I giving my weekends for? This is insane. And so I just decided to stay home and yeah, I'm sure that broke her heart because I think there was like, like you're becoming a man at 13 years old, right? And
yeah,
you get that one strand of hair on your upper lip. You're like, I'm a man, and so I stopped going. And then in grade 9, I remember distinctly, I went to a really dark place. Now, I think I would say this with hyperbole, we would maybe have described that as a depression. Back then, it was kind of like, why are you being sad?
Yeah.
Or what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Right? Snap out of it.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's how churches are right now. But at that point, it was like kind of like just whatever. What's wrong with you? Deal with it.
Yeah.
And I went to a private Christian school. I got into enough trouble that my parents said, you need to be under the discipline of private school. How about that? For that trouble question, I got into enough trouble as a kid that my parents were like, you need to go to a private school and not to a public school.
Yeah.
And I remember, I can't remember if it was a teacher or if it was another student, a peer, who was like, dude, you need Jesus. You need Jesus. And so I remember finding my way back to church.
Yeah.
And being involved in the youth group, and my youth pastor, who's David Mills, who's still a great mentor and friend of mine to this day. He was a youth leader, youth pastor at the time, and him kind of walking me through the idea of faith and stuff. And I remember there was a youth retreat, and I didn't want to go on it because I thought youth retreats were dumb. Not knowing that half of my life would be leading youth retreats, dealing with students who think they're dumb. Take that for irony. But I didn't go. And all my friends came back, they were all jazzed. They're all like, well, we did this, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, why am I missing something? And so I gave my heart to Jesus in my bedroom. The Sunday before, Teen Challenge came to our church. And one of the young men shared with me out of book of 1 Peter. You need to know that around the world there are young men going through the exact same sort of suffering as you. And for some reason that just stuck with me. Just stuck with me. And I remember I got home. There's no music, no Just As I Am, no pastor kind of inviting. I just knelt down at my bedside and said, Jesus, if you're real, here's my life. And whatever you want from me, here, take away all these sins, take away all this brokenness.
Enter the holy presence.
And there was no, I just remember waking up, but like getting up and going like, oh my goodness, like I felt it.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to describe it to you, but I felt it. I felt like this is real. And there's been ebbs and flows ever since, but like I often come back to that moment in February of 1995 where like everything became real.
Wow. So where did it take you in terms of post-secondary and education, and then finding again, we're back to this theme of finding place, right?
Right. Yeah.
You know, the time for cue up the Michael W. Smith.
Yes.
Place in this world right now. But how did
his voice is so nasally?
It is.
Anyhow, sorry.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, for your contribution to Christendom.
Yes. So tell us about finding your place in this world.
So nice. Womp womp. No, so
it's gonna be stuck in your head all day.
Every day, like all day now. I'm like, I'm just like, I'm gonna be standing in line at Chick-fil-A later on, looking for a reason. Oh, Kevin.
I apologize.
No, you don't. You don't apologize at all. You're not sorry about that at all. You want everybody to be singing that song afterwards. Looking it up, like sales on iTunes have spiked for the song of Michael W. Smith.
Wow.
Go West, young man. After getting saved and attending youth group, the next thing was going to youth camp. I didn't know anything about youth camp. What is this? And we couldn't afford that. Like we were well off, but like that's one of those extra things.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And Dave, our youth pastor, Dave Mills, he was so vital in making sure that those things happened for me. And I think it was my second or third youth camp. I remember standing for prayer and literally sensing like the Lord the Lord's call on my life for ministry.
Yeah.
Now, I think me now, if I was helping or mentoring me then, I would advise me to not become Joseph to his brothers, because I was like, I'm called to ministry. And I probably annoyed everyone around me.
You got a flashy coat.
Oh man, like look at what Daddy God bought me. Look at this. It's called a calling. And I would advise just serve, just be quiet and serve and let it grow.
Yeah.
But long story short, I went to college, John Abbott College in Montreal. My parents, they're like, hey, that's beautiful, you love Jesus, you need to go to college. Like, you need to go to college, you're going to university, you're going to this, you're going to that. And I did 2 years of a program, and in my second year I almost flunked out. And I remember explaining to my parents, were like, they were so upset, they're like, just my marks. I'm like, I'm not supposed to do this. Like, I know you have this idea for what my life should be, but that's not what I
Yeah.
And my parents were like, okay.
Yeah.
I remember sitting with my parents, my mom especially, like, we have our upstairs bathroom. She's sitting along the edge of the bathtub. I'm sitting on the sink, and just kind of just sharing with her like this, and she's like, okay, if this is what you're supposed to do, then we'll figure it out.
Yeah. They knew when to get behind.
Yeah. They're like, okay, here's the deal. If you finish, you get your marks back up, and you finish, you graduate from college, you get your diploma, and then we'll figure out a way to fund.
So, would you do a diploma in?
Liberal arts.
Liberal arts.
Yeah, that was the easiest thing. That was like if I did social sciences, I would have had to do math and science. Liberal arts allowed me just to do reading and learn about philosophy and anthropology and be like super fancy and have like lattes at 21 years old, and that was really cool. Yeah. Like you say liberal arts, and you're like kind of like, oh, okay, whatever, right? Like, it just sounds so like, oh, okay, sure. Yeah. And it was exactly. It was exactly that.
Perfect.
Yeah. And so I graduated in 2001, and then I made my way to Peterborough, Ontario, then had just become Master's College and Seminary from Eastern Pentecostal Bible College, in their youth ministry major. And they came to our church. President Carl Verge brought a worship team to our church at Evangel. I never even heard about the school before.
Yeah. And
I just knew, I'm going there.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of stuff happened between there to when I got to the school, and then after that. But I remember in that moment, and even now, like, I've talked to people who were on those travel teams who are now my peers.
Yeah.
Rob Lodge, who is pastoring at Bethesda in Newfoundland, he and I talk about that moment all the time. Like, I remember when you came to my church, and you were this little guy, this young guy, like, singing songs about God being so good to you, and now, like, we're like peers in this thing. So it's like,
I was on one of those teams, and we went to Evangel in Montreal, and that would have been probably 81, 82, 83, somewhere in there. 81, 82. So
I was 3.
Yeah, I remember.
You were
moving around a lot.
Yep. It was always on me from the get-go.
Yeah.
The call to move.
Yeah. But what a thing, when our colleges have done that kind of circuit riding, just how it helps establish this incredible network of I was there. Yeah.
And it's, you talk about the 6 degrees of David Wells, but there's 6 degrees to our schools, and we have 4 or 5 schools within our fellowship. But there's all these degrees in terms of like, like I'm connected to because of I got here because a team came because of this person, because of that person, that sort of thing. And so that got me to Peterborough for 2 years, and then Toronto for 2 years when the school moved.
That's right.
Right, literally right up the road from where we are. On Young and Lawrence, I believe. Yeah, Young and Lawrence. So 2 years in Peterborough, and then 2 years in Young and Lawrence, and then pastoring in Toronto for 9 years.
So give me the summary, the executive summary of graduating from Bible college to where you are now.
Yeah, sure.
In terms of the places and what you were doing in the places.
So third year of Bible college, the school moves to Toronto, and everybody realizes that the price to live in Peterborough is way different than the price to live in Toronto.
I've heard that.
Just a tad.
Yes.
And so I ended up working for a year at Flemington Park Pentecostal Church.
Oh, yeah.
On Don Mills.
Who did you work with there?
I worked with. There was a plethora of people at the time. Mainly Hudson Hillsden. Mm-hmm. He was the interim for the bulk of my stay, and then Tom Burke was there for the. Just as I finished, he came just as the school year was ending, and I was getting ready to go home. But the bulk of my time was with the great Hudson Hillsden, and that was to kind of cover costs while I was in school and to learn experience, things like that. And then I thought after that year, I was like, I don't know if I'm cut out for this thing. I don't know. Maybe I was going to finish school and then do something else. And then I ran into a friend by the name of Matt Janes, who at the time was the high school pastor at Agincourt Pentecostal Church, now One Church TO. And he was transitioning, and he said, like, I think that you'd be a great fit here. And so I took a chance, and I emailed a guy by the name of Keith Smith. Just a no-name dude.
Yeah, I've heard the name.
He's just a no-name guy.
Smith is a common name, though.
No, but no, I say that sarcastically. Like he's like my he's my hero.
Oh yeah.
He's my like he
deserves the credit.
I could we can do a whole podcast on just like the value of Keith Smith in my life. Yeah. As a spiritual father, as a mentor, as a leader, like but for the sake of the podcast, just no-name guy. For the sake of the podcast. And I emailed him. I said, hey, listen, I heard that you're just like only a 23-year-old going, I'm just gonna email this guy and say, hey, I heard you're looking for a youth pastor. Yeah. I'm available, right? Yeah. And then a person by the name of Jan Moken, another who Mama Jan, who I love, emails me back says he would love to meet with you. And that started a 9-year partnership.
Beautiful.
I grew up there. I grew up. Agincourt watched me come in literally before I graduated in my 4th year. Watched me get married. Saw me have 2 kids. We left there. Liam was 2, or we're not even 2 when we left Agincourt. And watched me go from high school pastor to overseeing a department to overseeing 2 departments to leading worship with Van Johnson, another no-name guy. No one knows who Van Johnson is whatsoever. Just
another common name, Johnson.
Just people have that last name. I will compliment Keith Smith ad nauseum. I will not even spend a moment complimenting Van Johnson at all. Except for the just great people. Yeah. And you talk about how like I recognize Ajax as like the city where I grew up, and that's like Agincourt is home for me. Is no matter where I am.
The church where you grew up.
Yeah. Like for my wife and I, for our kids, like that is like, well, our daughter, less our son because he was too young, but like that's home for us. So Keith Smith is always pastor. Yeah. Like no matter where I go, he's Pastor Smith. Even using his first name sounds like a swear word to me. Like he's pastor. Yeah. Pastor.
He earned the title.
Yeah. And I can joke around about Van Johnson, but like my mannerism of communicating.
I can see that.
Right, it is so influenced by it's the lone compliment I'll ever give him. Yeah. And his daughters, they helped raise our eldest daughter. They like his kids who are now in their 30s helped raise my daughter. The people who are there when we walk into anything at onechurch.to, there is a love from the people who are still there since then, now 7 years.
So just to complete the 6 degrees of separation, when I was on a travel team visiting Evangel in Montreal, one of the singers was Karen, which has been...
Oh my goodness! Karen is like there's not a funner person.
She was a scream.
There's not a funner person. She babysat our daughter for
May she never
year.
Grow old.
Ever. She's the best of us. I'll describe her that way. She's the best of us. And then from Agincourt, we transitioned in 2013 until recently to our Bible college in Peterborough, and worked with Rich Janes, again, another person that no one knows. And just kind of, I describe it as he and I, we did the towns, and I would sit shotgun to his leadership any day of the week, and we would just drive across eastern and western Ontario to to do what somebody did for me when I was a teenager and come and visit and say like, oh my goodness, that's a school I want to go to. Those are people who I want to become like.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's been until recently. That's been sort of the trajectory of life now.
So 9 years at Agent Court, and then from there, did you go work at the Bible College?
Yeah. So
what'd you do at Masters?
I felt like I was a jack of all trades, really.
Mm-hmm.
Like I felt like I was a Swiss Army knife.
Mm-hmm.
So I started as director of recruiting, a director of the first year facilitator. So
Mm-hmm.
the overseeing things like orientation and boot camp, kind of helping get students acclimatized to campus life, and then working with our urban center churches. So any church, literally Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, Windsor, London, like all of our major cities.
Mm-hmm.
From there, I transitioned to campus pastor, and while still kind of doing a lot of retreats and camps and kind of helping spread the word out there from a recruiting standpoint, and then until recently, until May of this year, oversaw all of the brand communication, so anything that had to do with the brand story.
Mm-hmm.
Again, still while helping out on campus, still while doing a lot of the recruiting and the retreat stuff. So that was sort of the story's recently ended there, and we're in a season of transition, which is a real blessing because I've never taken a break before, and so to be able to have this sort of like like I can sleep. Okay, let's do it. But like that was, and I would describe if Agent Court was high school and I was a Letterman jacket redshirt quarterback, a starter.
Mm-hmm.
Masters was master's level, literally schooling in terms of leadership, in terms of experience, in terms of working with some of the brightest minds that are shaping young leaders for the future, where you really had to earn your spot. Mm-hmm. And you had to be, no different than like an understudy in a Broadway musical. You had to be ready at any point in time to carry that load and carry that responsibility, but then be just as ready just to be a part of the ensemble. So that was the experience there.
Hey, be sure to subscribe to Sidewalk Skyline podcast and catch part 2 with Chris Chase. That's going to be coming out on December 1st. And can you believe it? We're already towards the end of the year. Our last episode will be on December 15th, wrapping up season 1. And then we're coming back in 2021 with season 2. And I've got a lot of ideas that I've been percolating, thinking about different guests that we want to interview over the year 2021, and also pulling together some great conversations about urban ministry. So glad that you tuned in, and until next time, keep one ear to the sky and one ear to the ground. I'm Kevin Rogers, and this is Sidewalk Skyline Podcast.